Hello, everyone, and welcome to our construction and engineering panel. We have a terrific team of experts for this panel, and we're excited to get started. I'm Adam Noar, and I want to thank all the panelists for being here today, and thank you to the students who have submitted questions and are viewing this discussion. This series of career panels is brought to you by Career Connect Southwest, which is a program of ESD 112. And now I would like to introduce you to our moderator for the discussion, Scott Culbertson. Scott?
Thank you, Adam. As Adam stated, we're very excited to have all of you on as a panel today. Welcome. We know your time is valuable, and we appreciate you spending this time with us for the benefit of students to learn more about construction and engineering. I know I'm going to learn a lot today. So with that, let me get started. What I'd like to do is start with a general question and have you introduce yourselves, say what industry you are from, and maybe a bit about the work that you do. So let's start with Carol, and then we'll go to Brandon, Kelly, Dan, and Carl in that order, if you would. So Carol, would you mind starting us off?
Sure. Well, my name is Carol Ruiz. I am a civil engineer with Gibbs & Olson Engineering in Longview. I grew up in Longview, Washington, and I went away to school and graduated from Washington State University with a bachelor's and a master's. And I do general civil engineering for municipalities, which involves roadway design, site design, water, sewer, storm drainage, all the utilities that we use every day from the time we get up till we go to bed and we don't really think about.
Well said. Brandon?
Yeah, good morning. My name is Brandon Flint. I'm Vice President of Operations for Inline Commercial Construction. We're a $45 million a year company. We build banks and hospitals and schools. I have no formal education. I came up through the field, worked my way up through the trades. And yeah, that's about me and our company, and I'm happy to be here today. Great.
Thank you, Brandon. Kelly?
All right, well, let's start off with Go Cougs, because you can never go wrong with that, right? Graduated from Washington State University as well, and then went to work for Kiewit for 17 and a half years. So heavy civil construction. And then 6 months ago, started a business consulting for design firms in risk management, cost estimates, schedules, construction planning, means and methods, and RFP document preparation.
Great. Thank you. Dan.
Hey, my name is Dan Bergman. I'm a professional land surveyor with Gibbs & Olson Engineering, and I went to Lower Columbia College here in Longview and Portland State there in Portland, and we build, basically, I help build neighborhoods, streets, roads, paper machines, industrial sites, sewage treatment plants, all the utilities, as Carol said, that everybody uses without thinking about it. And just kind of, if you're tripping over it, pretty much the surveyors help build it.
Mm-hmm. Good point. Good point. Carl?
Yeah, my name's Carl Hoppel. I'm owner of Fallsburg Enterprises. I've been self-employed in the construction industry for about 25 years and been in construction for 30 plus. We do commercial and residential construction. We build everything from school projects to high-end residential remodels, depending on the customer and the client's needs. That's what we do.
Great, great. I'm so excited to have the diversity that we have here. So many of you went to school, to university, and Brandon, as you stated, you did not, and all of you are very successful. So I think that's a great message in itself. Carol, I'm going to start with you. A very general question came forward, which is when we talk about engineering, what types of things, what concrete things do people take for granted that you work on? What's an example of the work that you do?
Well, I say a lot of times in the morning we get up, we turn on the water, fresh water comes out, and we don't think about using that. We'll go to the bathroom or take a shower, and we don't think about where that dirty water goes to. we drive somewhere to the grocery store and the roads aren't flooded with water, and we don't think about the fact that there's no water on the roadway. So the things that we do every day, we provide fresh drinking water and potable water to homes and businesses for people to be able to enjoy everyday things that some countries still don't even have those amenities. We take the used water away and treat it and are able to put it back into the environment. And then we do things such as drainage, taking stormwater and addressing flooding and making things so that people can drive from their homes to the grocery store with nice roads that are paved. Those are things that every day people use but don't think about, that I, as a civil engineer, and Dan, as a surveyor, we are in part of that process so that those amenities are available to our public.
Mm-hmm. Well stated. Brandon, I'm going to follow that up. Your career path is so interesting to me because you're an example of someone who pursued what they had passion for and made it successful. Because one of the students wrote in that, you know, if their path was not to go to college or university, what advice would this panel have for them if they were still interested in this field? Because I think there's an assumption, especially probably around engineering, and maybe somewhat well-founded, that you do need to go on to education and learn the trade. But I'd be fascinated to hear your take on how that worked for you, in that you did not take that path.
So yeah, no, engineering, I would definitely suggest continuous education. I mean, that's one that's pretty important to us. But in the construction field, you know, really it's just working and dedicating yourself to your work, and then also understanding networking and building relationships. I work in a company, you know, our core values are to promote from within, you know, work with our individuals, train our individuals. We have about 65 people, about 10 project managers, and out of that 10, I think 2 have degrees. The rest of them are ex-carpenters or ex-superintendents that have made the move into the office. So as long as I mean, that's the thing, is just dedicating yourself to your work, really focusing on your passion, networking, and starting to get in and build those professional development skills, you know, being able to interact with meetings, pulling yourself out of the field, and getting, you know, your technical skills on the computers and stuff. That's huge. And a lot of that you can self-taught, or you can get involved in the different seminars. And one nice thing about the construction industry is we pay to train. We pay our guys. Anyone that asks if they want to go to train, learn the Microsoft suite, Microsoft Excel, safety trainings, anything like that, the company pays for those trainings because we want to see our employees do well.
Mm-hmm. Good. Anybody else want to weigh in on your career path, as far as when did you realize that this was what you wanted to do, and was it a straight line, or was it a path that took different directions as you went along? I think one of the questions was, you know, if we have a goal as a student, I want to be X. I think we all know that our career paths don't take a direct line, and maybe for some of you they did. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on that as it pertains to either your engineering degree, Dan, and how you realized that that's what you wanted to do, or any other path. So maybe we'll start with Dan and speak a little bit about your career path.
Okay, thank you. Actually, I was an English major, so my path was not straight. And degrees only help in the qualification for the license that you get from the state. And yes, you know, engineering and surveying have like a apprenticeship method towards getting your license, you know. And so you get in the field, you work as an intern, or you get a job in the field, working construction, and learn your trade, and you can end up being licensed if you find yourself adept at it and able to master the job.
Mm-hmm. And Dan, what was your first job in this field?
As a land surveyor, I worked up in the woods doing boundary lines for Weyerhaeuser, basically,
Okay.
through Germanson Surveying.
And how did you come across that opportunity?
Well, I was mountain climbing, and the guy I was climbing with all the time, he worked as a land surveyor up in the hills for Weyerhaeuser, and boy, that fit my personality really well, and I shifted over to that.
Okay, great. Carl, it looked like you wanted to say something. Do you have something to add to that question?
I do, Scott. I wanted to add to Brandon's. I did not mention my education level, but I dropped out of high school at 9th grade and went into the work 6 months for somebody and then quit mode until I turned 17 and went into the military. When I got out, I was looking for a job, and I ran across a guy in remodel. And this was, again, 30 plus years ago. So, and all I did was show up on time and was willing to work. Most people think that the school it's their job to teach you something, and it is not the school's job to teach you something. It is the school's job to provide a facility to learn in. It's the student's job to learn. It's the student's job to be taught. And in the construction industry, I know this is probably politically incorrect, but most of us don't have a higher education. We fall into construction as hey, they're hiring and I need to pay my rent, and we move on. Some of us jump jobs, some of us start out. But what I noticed is that when I showed up every day on time, when I was willing to dig the ditch and pack the lumber and do all these things, for some reason, my boss was willing to teach me things and provide me with opportunities to move myself up. Our life goals are our responsibilities, as are the work habit that we provide to achieve those responsibilities.
I see a lot of head nodding going on. I think people are in general agreement with your statements. One of the things that fascinates me about engineering and construction is that just the diversity that's available in this industry. As Carol was speaking, there are so many different facets of this. And I guess I want to turn it over to you, Kelly. Can you describe a little bit about what you do? Because this is I think a facet of the business that people don't think about much, but you're in risk management engineering. Is that correct?
Thanks for the question, Scott. I guess I'll tie this into the previous comments and then go forward with your question.
Yeah.
And that is that in our industry, being the construction and engineering industry, there's a tremendous amount of passion for the youth. We all understand that it's the next generation that actually gets the work done. As we get more experienced in our careers and as we grow in our careers, we're there to offer leadership and guidance. So that we can get projects done on budget, on time, a quality product, because those are all really important things to the end users. You did a great job of describing the projects that we build out there every day, and that the purpose happens without even complete disruption to everybody's lives. So this passion for youth and bringing them up in the industry is important. Both Brandon and Carl hit on something that's absolutely critical, and that is the connections that we make in this industry. And I think that that's probably one of the biggest pieces for everybody to overcome, is that as they come into this industry, whether or not you were born into it or worked hard in it because you needed a job, Carl, or if you went in through the education route to get in it, somebody along the way kind of was there to give you a hand. And so it's incumbent upon us to continue that tradition. And probably is one of the things that sets us apart in the construction industry. Now I'm going to have to ask you to repeat your question.
I just wanted to hear a little bit more about your work in your industry in particular, because it seemed like a facet of the business that people don't think about often.
Absolutely. And so taking the pieces earlier, and that is the construction side, and having that as the background, being raised in this construction industry from the time I was born, and then also working in the industry, and then going on and getting a degree in the industry, and then again working for a very highly reputable contractor, Kiewit, for so many years. What it did is it taught me that there's more to what we do than just building work, right? There's a reason why we call it being contractors. We don't call it being builders, we call it being contractors. And it's because as contractors, we need to be able to understand the contract terms, right? As consultants, we need to be able to understand the contract terms that we're putting into the agreements and what is that really valued at. There's a component of cost, which is raw material and labor. There's a component of risk, and that is recognizing if it doesn't go the way that it was designed or planned, who owns it? What are we going to do with that? What is that worth to us? And then there's another component, which is time. And time is worth something to everybody. And so bringing all those pieces together, bringing the engineering aspect, bringing the construction aspect together, and then the contract terms, and really understanding what that cost is important to everyone. You know, nobody likes to go out and say, hey, I'm going to build a new house. It's going to cost me $200,000. And at the end of the day, it costs them $300,000.
Right.
And so understanding why does it make those leaps and bounds is critical to the success of projects and to our industry's reputation.
It sounds actually like there might be a lot of math involved in that. Is that true?
It's pretty simple math.
Simple math, but a lot of it. Kelly, I want to ask a follow-up for our listeners who don't know what a contractor is. What is a contractor? Or Brandon, you can take that too. Okay, go ahead, Kelly.
Well, a contractor is the person that you sign, or the company that you sign a contract with to provide a service to complete the work. And so I'll use the residential example. You want to build a house, you reach out to ABC Contracting, you agree to a price, and then you put into place some terms and conditions that will be met. You should both sign it, you pay for it, the consideration part, offer, acceptance, consideration, and that's a contract. Therefore, contractors are those that execute the contract.
Okay, good description. This is a question for the entire team. The student wanted to know, what are the jobs that you see as most in demand in Southwest Washington? So, if they have an interest in this field, where do you see the greatest need?
Can I touch on that one?
You bet.
In the subcontracting world, and that's kind of tough to describe in a 5-minute interview, but electricians, plumbers, finish carpenters, all of the people who are part of the team to put the contract together, put the project together. We're seeing a lack of what we would call raw material coming into the industry. So many students are moving on into college that they don't go to the trades anymore. And when in fact the trades pay quite a bit more money in the long run than most degrees do. Definitely directly out of college, the average income is about $40,000 coming out of college, where after 4 years of being in construction, if you're running a residential job, you're making at least 50. And Brandon, in the commercial industry, most commercial superintendents in Seattle now are making 80,000 plus a year. And so really it's an excellent financial career as well, but you have to start at the bottom so you can learn your job. You don't become an engineer by taking 3 classes and going to night school for 2 weeks. You become an engineer by spending 4 years in college and then going and doing your career time so that you become what's called a PE, or an engineer. And I don't want to speak over what I know, but an engineer with 2 different degrees in engineering so that you can take that knowledge and create your career. It's a little different, but it starts at the beginning in those little subcontractors that they use their knowledge to help us general contractors build a good building or a good project.
If I can piggyback onto that, Carl hit the nail on the head. We are hurting for skilled workers, people that want to join the industry, that want to make a career out of construction. We're coming out of this workforce deal. It's really good. For the past 40, 60 years, if you don't go to college, you're going to be a ditch digger. you know, and well, ditch diggers are making between, you know, 60 and 80 grand a year, depending on what they're doing, working with GPS and satellites. And, you know, it's a pretty good gig with full benefits and 401k plans. So, you know, it's good that I'm just really happy that we're finally starting to get some traction out there and let people know that the construction industry is a viable career path. You can make a very good living off of it. Very little debts involved, but you do have to work. And I think that that's what's missing is people aren't understanding that you need to show up, you need to give it your all. You want to, you know, you want to be a climber, don't be a coaster, you know, and really, you know, give yourself a real opportunity, you know, and that's what we're missing. So at least from the construction side.
I would respond to the individual asking about, you know, what part of the industry I should go into by asking them what their passion is. What you're hearing from everybody is that it's really important that they want to be in the industry. And there's a lot of opportunities. I mean, right here on the phone call, you've got 5 different career paths for any one person. And so it can be in the craft, it can be in engineering, it can be in project oversight. You can choose that, but you really need to understand yourself and what you're going to be comfortable with. And then the other thing too is have a respect for the construction industry in the sense, and the engineering fields, in understanding that economic conditions do change. And so it's not probably unlike anybody on this phone that when the projects are not there, right? Sometimes you have to travel for them. And so sometimes there is time being away from home or moving your home to be in this industry.
I wanted to add one thing to Kelly's deal also is keep an open mind also. The construction industry has a million different career paths. I mean, I was super passionate about construction. I saw big tower cranes building. I'm like, I want to build those. And I wanted to be a superintendent more than anything in the world. And I came up through labor, carpenter, all that stuff. Did superintendent for about 1.5 years, and I got sucked into the office, you know, and then I started doing office work. Then I went into business development and helped writing RFPs and ended up in a totally different area than what I thought I was going to be.
But just real fun, Brandon, for a minute, think about how many career options are there, right? You've got quality control testing, you've got quality assurance testing, okay? We haven't even touched on those subjects yet, right?
Exactly. I don't think Zoom could handle the bandwidth for all the career options that are in construction. Yeah. We want to draw it, build it, organize it, design it,
supply it.
Yeah. And getting into the industry will start you on your path, and then you can figure out which part you want. Because I think if just people that want to be in construction get into this industry, we'll lose the Carols and the Dans. Whereas if we get people who, hey, I want to draw or I want to be an artist, you know, real estate agents use renderings all the time of homes and buildings. It's incalculable how many career paths there are.
Yeah, we have, you know, and then all of the back of the house stuff that typical companies have, you know. I have a marketing person, you know. We have 2 controllers, accountants, CPAs, HR departments.
Right.
The list goes on and on.
Well, that's great, and I think you have collectively answered this next question, which the student writes. I want to be in this industry. However, I also want to keep my mind active, and I think we can quickly dispel that myth, right? That in construction you're not using your mind, and you're not having to apply your thoughts every day in your job. Anybody have a comment for that? Or should we
I do, and thank God that we have never had anybody hurt. But this is a dangerous industry in the field. Whether you're in engineering and you're out on site and something gets dropped on your head, or whether you're working 60 floors up and you could fall. You have to be engaged in your job when you're in construction. If you want to type on your phone, if you want to play video games, if you want to do all that stuff, don't do it on the site. Don't be in construction, because that's something for a production line where you're doing the thing all day, every day. We need people who are engaged in their mind every day, thinking about not only what they just did, what they're currently doing and what might occur in 20 minutes, looking for options or for safety issues, because it could be dangerous. So we have to use our brain, and that keeps you active. My father-in-law is 78 years old and still shows up to work every day with an active, engaged brain, paying attention to where stuff gets put, how it gets moved around the site, how contracts are moved around, so that not only is the client service, but the company is safe from those issues.
Mm-hmm. Good input.
Hey, Scott, I wanted to add on to that. As a project manager, I mean, I didn't start as a project manager. I came out of school and I started as an engineer in training. And like Carl alluded to, I had to spend time. I had to get my experience. And then I was able to sit for an exam and take my PE. And my particular position required schooling so that I could have this particular position. Not all do.
Mm-hmm.
But now in my career, I have evolved into become a project manager. It didn't happen overnight. It happened over 20, 25 years worth of experience. But keeping your mind sharp, and Dan can probably attest to this as well, at any one time, I am managing 20 to 25 projects in various stages of construction and design. And in one day, I can be involved in 15 different projects in one day and have to, within 5 minutes, jump from one project to the next, get up to speed, answer a question, solve a problem, help somebody move along. And so actively engage, whether you're in the field, like Carl said, you got to be aware of what's going on, to in the office being able to answer questions or address something at a drop of a hat. You have to be actively engaged. You can't just be checked out, because while it seems like you're in the office and you're just doing office work, it is a very active job mentally a lot of the time.
Right. And even in the field, it sounds like it's mentally active as well.
Yeah, although I'm no longer in the field, I have a crew out in the field, and we have a construction representative a couple of construction representatives out in the field. And so we have projects under construction, many projects under construction, and it just goes on and on.
Right. Yeah. Thanks for that, Dan. So a related question is, a student is interested in this field, but they do recognize that it's broad, and they've been listening to some of our other panels, and a common theme in the other panels focused on other industries was, one way to get in the door and understand what you would like to do is to volunteer. And I'm not sure that advice applies as well to this this industry. But did any of you take a volunteer job to begin with, or is that a possibility in this field?
No.
So we believe in getting paid in this field. It's called an internship, and they're paid internships.
Absolutely. And there are some opportunities for students or underage, but the risk is pretty high, as I'm sure Kelly can attest to. And really this is not, Habitat for Humanity has some volunteer stuff, but in the industry itself, it really, you need to go get paid for working. Those people are making money off of your effort. You need to get paid. And I don't know any contractors right now that if you show up and work hard, they wouldn't pay you at least minimum wage, wage. Probably more, Brandon. I mean, I think we pay a ditch digger walking on with no experience and owns a set of gloves and a set of boots, $17 to $20 an hour. And that's if we're not on a school job. If we're on a school job, a laborer makes a minimum of $27.50, I think it is, picking up sticks off the lawn. And if you are into actual building and operating a tool after you're 18 years old, I had to pay a guy $54 an hour on a school job for carpentry. So again, people have no idea how much money you can make, but it's not free. Don't ever sell yourself short. If you're willing to show up, you have value.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We do have interns. You can do internships. You can come in and do a job shadow, just walk around and be introduced to what's going on. I have a guy that just walked onto my crew, and he went on to a prevailing wage job making $51 an hour. It
No,
just with no experience.
Yeah.
I will tell you that, for example, we have hosted youth in a job shadowing type of environment, Dan, where we've brought them in and shown the type of work that we do. And that's just to engage their energy into it and kind of give them ideas on to what kind of careers they could have. And when I say youth, I mean 9, 10-year-olds, right? Up until they're 16. And those are great opportunities. But, you know, this is one of those industries where you can actually make those opportunities yourself. And that is going outside and mowing the grass is great. Doing your science experiments at home and building, you know, what you're going to have for that science project, understanding and calculating the engineering that's going into it. You know, we are surrounded by it all the time. So really, and it doesn't have to be just in the craft, right? You don't have to be just as physical and strapping as Brandon looks like he is. This is an industry that takes all types of people to make it happen.
Yeah.
But it goes back to that desire just to be in the industry and opening your mind up to all the opportunities.
Kelly hit the nail on the head. You don't have to be employed to do construction. You know, grab a screwdriver and take something apart. You know, and figure out how it works. The one thing I do also want to add, though, that we've kind of been noticing in some feedback that I give to the high school level kids is working at supply houses during the summertime is a great way to get your foot in the door in construction. Working at Home Depot, working in a Platt Electrical Supply, something like that. You get to know what the materials are. You put your hands on a 2x4, you put your hands on sheetrock, you know, and during that time, you get to meet people in the industry and you start building relationships. And the one electrician that comes through that place every other day to pick up his boxes and his conduit, and if you're Johnny on the spot, you know, taking care of him, he's going to start asking you, hey, we got an opening for a shop guy, you know, hey, do you want to come work for us or something like that, you know? A lot of it's relationship based. So that's some of the feedback I get for entry level work, because it's a little tough to find the entry portal into construction sometimes.
Well, the other thing too is don't be afraid to ask. The industry is got a lot of jobs in it. If you know somebody that's, even if you don't even know them well, hey, they live across the street from you and you've seen their truck pull into the driveway every day and it says Pat Pay on it or something. Don't hesitate to go over and say, hey, I'm 17, I'm interested in the career in construction. Can I come? Do you have any openings? And that's really how open this industry is.
Yeah, I want to go back to something you said earlier, Kelly, which is all of you are interested in seeing the next generation come up and be successful, right? Because that's the labor that's going to be available for you. And I think I forget who said it, but maybe it was Carl that maybe in education we haven't spoken about skilled labor in the ways that we should have been, because the opportunities are so significant for students.
We build the world, Scott. Well, who wouldn't want to be a part of that?
Exactly. Yeah. I agree with you. And per what Carol said earlier, we take a lot of it for granted, right? I mean, your water flows, your house stands and doesn't blow down in the wind, and you can drive on the roads and be safe. But that all takes skilled labor and engineering. So I think that's a very, very important point. As always with these sessions, we're nearing the end of our time, and I wanted to give each of you a chance just to speak directly to middle school students and high school students on any advice that you have for them regarding how they pursue their career, and I think we've heard a lot of the themes, right? Be ready, be willing to work hard, get out there, get busy. But I wanted to save the last few minutes for any other thoughts that you guys might have for them as they think about this career path. And why don't we start with you, Carl, and then we'll move to Carol.
I think the main thing is to use your opportunity of only having the career of going to school right now to learn how to learn, so that as you move into this career or any other career that you have the ability to pick up. Times are changing every day. And so you have to be able to adapt and learn the new skill. Do those things, learn to learn so that you can come and be of some input into your career, no matter what it is, and engage, be a part of what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Good advice. Carol, how about from your perspective?
I was going to say it's okay if you don't really know what you want to do. It's okay. When I went into college, I didn't know. I knew I wanted to do something in this area, but I wasn't sure. And so I took some different classes, and then by a process of elimination, I realized that I wasn't an electrical engineer, I wasn't a chemical engineer, and civil, yeah, it fits me. And I think a lot of times we feel like we have to know from the time we're 5, this is what we're going to do. You don't always know, but I will say one thing that's really important is, it's been said before, and it's a cliche, but if you know that's something that you love, that's probably something that you should look to do, because really you won't be working a day in your life because you're doing something that you're passionate about.
Right.
And so if you don't know, that's okay, but look at the things that you really enjoy and see if that's a pathway that you can find to what you want to do for your future.
I like that summary a lot. One of my favorite words is serendipity, and it just means things happen but you have to be ready to take advantage of them. Good things happen, but if you're ready, it makes all the difference. And it's usually not a straight line, as most of you had said. You don't know from the beginning.
And I'll just add one piece to that is be willing to do any opportunity that comes along. It plays into what both Carl and Brandon and Kelly have said. And I know for me, when things came up, and I don't know anything about doing a water system for washout, but I'll learn because it needs to be done, and I'll help. So any opportunity you can have will help advance your career.
Right. And I tell my kids, nobody knows anything when they're born, right? Everybody learns everything. So you have to try and get out there and learn it. Thank you, Carol. How about you, Kelly?
I would say to middle schooler and high schoolers that don't be afraid to break things.
Mm-hmm.
Be curious, but be thoughtful too.
Yeah.
Meaning your safety is important. So, if you are running this screwdriver and, pointing at your brother or sister or yourself, just make sure that when that potential or that kinetic energy goes forward, you know who you're going to stab.
Yeah.
That is great advice. Great advice.
Particularly in this industry. Yeah. Safety is paramount. Brandon, how about you?
Don't be afraid to be successful, and don't be afraid to fail. We've all failed plenty. But so many times people get caught up in just that one first step forward to ask the neighbor if he has an opportunity to apply at a job and get denied. You're going to have that, and that's just part of life. And then the one other thing, we use it all the time here. It's a part of our employability thing. Be a climber, not a coaster. That's what's going to get you through life. And that's not construction. That's any job, So that's what I would just have to say.
I love that saying, don't be afraid to be successful. That's good. Yeah. Dan?
Yeah, there's plenty of opportunities out there. The surveying field is wide open to everybody. I like to learn, have commitment, and be accountable. Be accountable for something. Be accountable, personally accountable for everything you do, and have some integrity in everything that you do. Just be an outstanding person and you'll have success.
Yeah, we have a saying that everything you do has your signature on it, and people will know that that's your work. So it's important to do the best that you can. Well, I'm sorry that we're out of time. I feel like we could talk to you for another hour here, but I do know your time is very valuable. I want to thank the panel so much for being here today, and also thank the students for submitting questions. I hope you learned a little bit about this very broad and diverse industry that is filled with opportunity, and in some instances does not require you to take on any debt to get out there and learn and get active. So thank you, panel. I will now turn it over to Adam for our closing comments.
Wow. Thank you so much, panelists, for such a great discussion. And again, thank you to the students who submitted questions, and of course to all our viewers. Be sure to tune in next week where we have another great panel organized for you, our health panel. And as always, please submit questions in advance. Thank you once again to our panel, and we will be back next week.